Welcome back to Forbidden Meditations. I am Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome for 19 years. Stoic philosopher, and if you believe the history books, the last of the good emperors. Now, every episode, I sit down with someone from your century, and we talk about the things that are quietly destroying people from the inside. No scripts, no lectures, just a conversation. Today I have a guest who reached out because they said, and I am quoting here, "I feel like everyone can get to me, and I do not know how to stop it." So we are going to talk about that. How to become psychologically untouchable. But first, introduce yourself. Tell everyone who you are and what brought you here.
Hey everyone. So, I'm not going to share my name, if that's okay. I think a lot of people watching this will relate more if I stay anonymous. Because honestly, what I'm dealing with isn't unique. I think most people feel this way. They just don't say it out loud. What brought me here is I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted from caring about what everyone thinks. I'm exhausted from replaying conversations in my head. I'm exhausted from feeling like I need to justify every decision I make. And I heard about this series, and I thought, if anyone can help me stop being so reactive to everything, it's probably a 2,000-year-old emperor who dealt with way worse than I do.
Well, I appreciate the honesty. And you are right. What you are describing is not unique. I watched it consume people who had armies at their disposal. So let us start there. Tell me about the reactions. What does that actually look like in your life?
Okay, so the best way I can describe it is that my mind has a hair trigger, and everything pulls it. Someone criticizes me at work, and I replay it for 3 days. A comment online from someone I've never met can ruin my entire evening. Someone gives me a look in a meeting, and I spend the rest of the day trying to figure out what it meant. And the worst part, I know it's irrational. I know that person probably forgot about it 5 minutes later, but I can't stop. My brain just latches on.
You know what is fascinating about that? You just described the condition of nearly every senator I ever governed. These were powerful men. Men with armies, with wealth, with influence over millions. And a single sideways glance from a rival could send them spiraling for weeks. I watched generals who conquered entire provinces crumble because someone at a dinner party made a comment about their wife. And I realized something very early on. When you react, you are not defending yourself. You are advertising your weakness. You are showing every person in the room exactly where your buttons are. And once they know where the buttons are, they will press them forever.
But sometimes the things people say are genuinely unfair. They're wrong about me. How am I supposed to just let that stand?
Let me ask you something. When a dog barks at you on the street, do you get on all fours and bark back?
No, of course not.
Why not? The dog is wrong about you. The dog thinks you are a threat. The dog is making noise about something that is not true. Why do you not correct the dog?
Because it's a dog. It wouldn't understand.
And yet, when a person operates at the same level of awareness, driven by fear, insecurity, or ignorance, you feel the need to get on all fours and bark back. The correction you are seeking is not for them. It is for you. You want to feel right. You want the record set straight. But whose record? The one in their mind or the one in yours? I wrote something in my journal that I want to share with you. The best revenge is to not be like your enemy. Not to out-argue them. Not to prove them wrong. Not to win. To simply not become what they are. The moment you react, you have joined them on their level. And you cannot lead from a place you stooped to reach.
So you just Let people say whatever they want.
I let people reveal themselves. There is a difference. When someone attacks you and you do not react, you have not lost anything. But they have lost something very important. They have lost their ability to control you. And for most people, that is the only power they have. Take it from them. Not with anger, with stillness.
Okay, that actually connects to something else I struggle with. Maybe even more than the reacting. I over-explain everything. My decisions, my boundaries, why I left a job, why I said no to an invitation, why I didn't respond to a message fast enough. It's like I feel this constant pressure to justify my existence. Like if I don't explain myself, people will fill in the blanks with something worse.
They will fill in the blanks regardless. This is something I learned early. When I was young, I believed that if I explained my reasoning clearly enough, people would understand. If I showed my logic, they would follow it. If I revealed my intentions, they would trust them. I was wrong. People do not hear your explanation. They hear their own fears reflected back at them. The insecure person hears arrogance. The jealous person hears boasting. The guilty person hears accusation. You could explain yourself perfectly. Every word precise, every intention pure. And they would still misunderstand you. Because they are not listening to you. They are listening to themselves.
So what's the alternative? Just say nothing?
Say what is necessary. No more. When I made a decision for Rome, whether to go to war, whether to show mercy, whether to raise taxes, I did not stand in the forum and explain my reasoning to every citizen, not because I did not care, because explanation would have weakened the decision. A decision that needs to be explained is a decision that is asking for permission, and you do not need permission to live your life.
But people think silence means I'm guilty, or that I'm hiding something, or that I don't care.
Let them think it. I know this is not what you want to hear. But the people who think your silence means guilt were never going to believe your innocence anyway. They had already decided. Your explanation is not evidence to them. It is entertainment. And the people who actually know you, they do not need the explanation. They already understand. You are exhausting yourself, performing for an audience that is not even watching. You are writing essays for people who will never read them. And every word you spend justifying yourself is a word you could have spent building something that speaks for itself.
That's hard to accept.
Most true things are. I will tell you something I never told the Senate. Every morning I woke up and reminded myself, today I will encounter people who are ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, and envious. And then I asked myself, will I let them decide how I spend my energy? The answer was always no, and the way I enforced that answer was simple. I stopped explaining. I started moving. An emperor does not explain, he moves, and the results speak with a voice louder than any justification. Real quick, if you are finding value in this conversation, hit the subscribe button. We do these every week, and episode 5 is going to go even deeper. Also, I have to mention the Becoming Stoic app. It is free. It puts my meditations in your pocket. And honestly, it is the closest thing you will get to having me in your corner every morning. Link is in the description. All right, let us keep going, because what you said next, that one hit close to home for me too.
So there's something else I've been carrying, and I think it's heavier than the reactions or the explaining. There are people in my life who drain me. Every conversation leaves me emptier than before. They bring problems but never want solutions. They take but never give. And being around them makes me feel like I'm shrinking. but I can't seem to leave. Because every time I think about pulling away, I feel guilty, like I'm abandoning them. Like I'm a bad person for wanting distance.
You are confusing loyalty with self-destruction. I had advisors who nearly destroyed my reign, not with swords, with whispers. They drained my focus. They consumed my attention with petty grievances and manufactured crises. And I kept them close far longer than I should have. Because I believed a good leader never abandons his people. That belief almost cost me the empire.
What changed?
I realized something that I want you to understand deeply. You are not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. Loyalty has a direction. It must flow toward those who honor it. When you give your energy to someone who only consumes it, you are not being loyal. You are being used. And the cruelest part is that you are using yourself. Volunteering for your own depletion because guilt told you it was noble.
But how do you know when someone is actually draining you versus just going through a hard time? I don't want to abandon someone who genuinely needs help.
Ask yourself one question. After I help this person, do they grow, or do they simply come back for more? A person who is struggling will use your support as a bridge. They will cross it and eventually walk on their own. A person who is draining you will use your support as a hammock. They will lie in it indefinitely and resent you if you ever try to take it away. You know the difference. You have always known. You simply did not want to admit it. Because admitting it means you have to act.
And the guilt. How do I deal with the guilt of walking away?
The guilt is not real. It is a story you are telling yourself. Because someone taught you that your needs do not matter. That putting yourself first is selfish. That being a good person means being an available person. But think about this. When you are drained, depleted, running on nothing, what do you have to give? When every conversation exhausts you and every interaction leaves you hollow, who are you helping? No one. You are just performing generosity from an empty account. The most generous thing you can do, for yourself and for others, is to be full, to have energy, to have clarity. And sometimes that means removing the people who are draining the tank faster than you can fill it.
Marcus, did you ever feel guilty about the people you had to distance yourself from?
Every time. Guilt is the price of growth. But I will tell you what I told myself on those mornings when the weight felt heaviest. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. I wrote that because I lived it. When I surrounded myself with people who thought small, I began to think small. When I surrounded myself with people who took endlessly, I began to feel endlessly empty. The people you allow into your inner world shape the person you become. Guard that entrance, not with cruelty, with clarity.
Everything you've said makes sense. Stop reacting, stop explaining, stop giving yourself to people who only take. But what does it actually look like, day to day? What does it feel like to live untouchable?
It does not feel like armor. That is the first thing people misunderstand. They think untouchable means hard, cold, walled off, a fortress with no doors. It is the opposite. When you are untouchable, you are more open than you have ever been, because you are no longer afraid of what might come in.
I don't understand. How can you be open and untouchable at the same time?
Because the threat was never the outside world. The threat was always your response to it. Right now, you are afraid of criticism, so you armor up. You are afraid of rejection, so you perform. You are afraid of being drained, So you overcompensate. All of that armor, all of that performance, all of that overcompensation. That is not protection. That is a prison. And you built it yourself. When you become untouchable, you do not need the armor. Because you have learned that the criticism cannot actually harm you. The rejection cannot diminish you. The draining people cannot reach you. Not because you are blocked off, but because you have decided that their behavior is their business, not yours.
How did you practice that, practically? What did your days look like?
Every morning before the sun rose, I sat in stillness and rehearsed the worst things that could happen that day. Not to frighten myself, to prepare myself. I would think, today someone will betray my trust. Someone will speak ill of me. Something I care about will fail. And I will be fine. Because none of those things can touch the part of me that matters. The Stoics called this premeditatio malorum, rehearsal of adversity. Most people wait for the storm and then panic. I walked into every day having already survived the storm in my mind.
And at night?
At night, I reviewed, not with judgment, with honesty. Where did I react today when I should have been still? Where did I explain when I should have been silent? Where did I give energy to someone who did not deserve it? And then I forgave myself. Because the practice is not about perfection. It is about awareness. Each day you notice one more reaction that you used to miss. You have grown. Each day you catch yourself before the explanation. You are freer.
That sounds peaceful, but also lonely. Doesn't detachment mean you lose the people you love? Doesn't it mean you stop feeling?
That is the greatest lie ever told about Stoicism. And I am partly responsible for it, because people read my journal and see a man trying to master his emotions, and they think I was trying to kill them. I was not trying to feel nothing. I was trying to feel the right things. I loved my children fiercely. I loved my wife. I loved Rome. And it was precisely because I loved those things that I could not afford to waste my emotional energy on senators who wanted to provoke me or citizens who cursed my name during the plague. Untouchable does not mean unfeeling. It means selective. You learn to pour your heart into the things that matter and let everything else pass through you, like wind through an open window.
One last question, and I think it's the one I've been avoiding this whole time. Did you ever feel alone, being the most powerful person in the world, carrying all of that by yourself?
Every single day. But here is what I learned about loneliness. The loneliest person in Rome was not the one who sat alone in the palace at night. It was the senator who changed his opinion every time the crowd shifted. It was the merchant who could not eat a meal without wondering if his neighbors were impressed. It was the soldier who fought not for Rome, but for applause. Those men were surrounded by people every hour of every day. And they were the loneliest people I ever met, because they had given away the only companion that truly matters, themselves. When you are untouchable, you get that companion back. You sit with yourself and you are not afraid of what you find. You walk alone and you are not empty. You stand in silence and you are not lost. That is not loneliness. That is freedom. And I would trade every banquet, every triumph, every roaring crowd for 1 hour of it. I think that is a good place to end it. How are you feeling?
Honestly, like I've been carrying a bag of bricks and you just pointed out I could put it down whenever I want. It sounds so simple when you say it. Stop reacting. Stop explaining. let people go. But I know it's going to be a practice, not a switch.
That is exactly right. It is a practice, and you will fail at it many times. The point is not to be perfect. The point is to notice. Each time you catch yourself reacting, explaining, or giving energy to someone who does not deserve it, that is growth. That is one step closer to untouchable.
Thank you, Marcus. Seriously, I think a lot of people needed to hear this.
Thank you for being honest. That takes more courage than most people realize. And to everyone watching, if this conversation changed something in you, leave a comment telling me which part hit the hardest. I read every single one of them. Download the Becoming Stoic app. It is free, and it will keep these principles in your pocket when you need them most. Link is in the description. And subscribe, because Forbidden Meditations Episode 5 is coming. And we are going to talk about something even more dangerous than what we covered today. I will see you there.